The diner was almost empty, the kind of late-night quiet where the hum of the fluorescent lights felt louder than the voices that came and went. Emily Carter moved from table to table with a rag in her hand, her apron stained with coffee and grease. She was 25, exhausted, and running on fumes from back-to-back shifts. The tip she'd earned tonight would barely cover gas and her mother's medication. She sighed as she reached the corner booth, the one where a man in a tailored suit had been sitting for hours. He had left half a steak untouched, dropped a $50 bill for a $12 check, and walked out without a word. Emily shook her head. Rich men passed through this diner sometimes, but they usually didn't look as sharp or as dangerous as him. That's when she noticed it. Lying against the red vinyl seat was a wallet, not the beat-up kind most truckers carried, but a heavy, smooth leather piece that screamed money. Emily picked it up and felt its weight. Her hands trembled as she flipped it open. Stacks of crisp $100 bills stared back at her. Thousands of dollars, more than she had seen in years, tucked inside like pocket change. There were platinum credit cards, too, each embossed with the same name, Victor Kane. Emily's heart skipped. She knew that name. Everyone in Dallas did. Kane wasn't just rich. He was the type of rich that came with whispers, stories about shady deals, silent partnerships, and enemies who ended up ruined. Her pulse raced. Logic screamed at her to put the wallet down and pretend she hadn't seen it. But something stronger, something her mother had drilled into her since childhood, pulled her in another direction. Do the right thing, Emily. Always do the right thing. She shoved the wallet into her apron. The rest of her shift crawled by, every second weighted by the secret in her pocket. What if the man came back looking for it? What if one of the night cooks saw her slip it away? She caught herself glancing at the door every time it creaked open. When midnight finally hit, Emily clocked out and walked to her old Honda Civic. The car coughed before the engine came to life, the muffler rattling louder than her thoughts. She gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She grit clip it. The idea hit her hard and fast. $5,000 in cash, enough to cover rent, her mother's medicine, and even fix the car that sounded like it might die any second. Nobody had seen her take the wallet. Nobody would know. Her throat tightened with guilt. That was stealing. That was lying. That was everything her mother told her not to be. She took a shaky breath. Do the right thing, she whispered to herself, staring at the dark highway stretching ahead. Emily drove home to the small duplex she shared with her mother. The porch light flickered as if it was about to give out. Inside, her mom was asleep in the couch, a blanket tucked under her chin. The sight of her frail frame made Emily's chest ache. She pulled the wallet back out and stared at the crisp bills again. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She wanted to keep it. God, she wanted to. Instead, she grabbed her phone and searched the address printed on one of the cards inside. Victor Kane's office tower gleamed on the screen, glass and steel, downtown, untouchable. Emily set her jaw. Tomorrow she would return it. The wallet sat on her nightstand as she lay in bed, tossing and turning. Her mind wouldn't stop racing. The diner, the money, the name, the weight of it all pressed against her chest until she drifted into a restless sleep. Somewhere in the city, Victor Kane was already making calls. And by morning, Emily would realize that doing the right thing sometimes came with a price. As she turned off her bedside lamp, a car she didn't recognize slowed in front of her house, headlights sweeping across her window. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds, pulling Emily out of her shallow sleep. Her first instinct was to glance at the nightstand. The wallet still sat there, as heavy with consequences as it had been the night before. She brewed a cheap cup of instant coffee and sat at the table across from her mother, who was nibbling on dry toast. "You barely slept," her mom said, her voice raspy but tender. Emily forced a smile. "I've got an errand to run before work," Emily replied, sliding the wallet into her bag. She didn't want to explain the truth, not yet, not until this was over. By 10 a.m., Emily stood in front of the Kane International Building. It loomed over downtown Dallas like a fortress of glass and steel, its mirrored windows reflecting a sky as sharp and cold as the man who owned it. She felt impossibly small as she pushed through the revolving doors into a lobby filled with marble floors, polished brass, and the scent of money. At the front desk, she cleared her throat. I need to return something to Mr. Kane. He left it at the diner last night." The receptionist, a woman in her 30s with perfectly styled hair, arched an eyebrow. "And you are—" "Emily Carter," her voice shook, "just a waitress." Something in the woman's gaze flickered, pity, maybe curiosity. She picked up the phone, murmured into it, then nodded toward the elevators. "Mr. Kane will see you, top floor." Emily's pulse hammered as she stepped into the elevator. The numbers climbed, 1530, 42. By the time the doors opened, her palms were slick with sweat. Victor Kane's office was the size of her entire duplex. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the room in light, casting long shadows across sleek black furniture. Behind a mahogany desk sat the man himself. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered with silvery hair that only made him look more powerful. His eyes, sharp and unreadable, locked on her. "You have something of mine." Emily swallowed, pulling the wallet from her bag. She walked it across the room and set it gently on his desk. "I found it at the diner. Thought you'd want it back." Victor opened it, his expression giving away nothing. He glanced at her, then at the receptionist standing silently near the door. Finally, his lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Honest people are rare these days. His voice was deep, commanding, the kind that filled the room without effort. Most would have taken the cash and disappeared. "I don't steal," Emily said quietly. Victor studied her as though testing the truth of that statement. "What's your name again?" "Emily Carter." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Emily Carter, the honest waitress. I like that." What? For a fleeting moment, relief washed over her. Maybe this was it. She had done the right thing, returned the wallet, and now she could go back to her life. But then she noticed a woman standing just behind Victor. She hadn't spoken a word, but her presence was unsettling. Immaculately dressed in a tailored gray suit, with sharp cheekbones and calculating eyes, she studied Emily as though dissecting her. Victor followed Emily's gaze. "This is Sophie Lang, my attorney." Sophie's smile was polite but cold. "Not many people walk into Mr. Kane's office uninvited. You must be very trustworthy." Emily nodded awkwardly, clutching her bag. "I should get going. Just wanted to make sure this got back to its owner." Victor's smile widened. "And it has. Thank you, Miss Carter. You've done me a great service." Emily turned to leave, her chest tight with nerves. But as she walked toward the elevator, she caught Sophie watching her, green eyes glinting like a cat's. There was something in that look, suspicion, maybe recognition, that made Emily's stomach twist. By the time she stepped out of the building into the blinding Texas sun, her knees were weak with relief. She told herself it was over. She had done the right thing. But as she slid into her old Honda, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. The message made her blood run cold. "We need to talk tonight." Emily glanced in the rearview mirror. A black SUV she hadn't noticed before pulled out of the parking garage and followed her onto the street. The evening air felt heavy, the kind of sticky Texas night where every sound carried farther than it should. Emily sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone, trying to distract herself with meaningless news headlines. But her mind kept circling back to the message she received earlier: "We need to talk tonight." She hadn't replied. She didn't even know who it came from. Maybe it was spam. Maybe it was meant for someone else. But deep down, she knew it wasn't random. Someone knew what she had touched. Someone was watching. Her mother had already gone to bed, the soft hum of the old bedroom fan drifting down the hall. Emily stood up, poured herself a glass of water, and tried to breathe. "It's fine," she whispered. "It's over. It has to be." Then came the sound. Engines low, steady, and synchronized like a mechanical heartbeat. Emily set her glass down and stepped toward the window. Out on the quiet suburban street, 5 black SUVs rolled slowly into view, their headlights slicing through the dark like knives. They didn't rush, didn't honk. They moved in unison, as if choreographed. Her stomach dropped. The cars pulled to a stop in front of her duplex. Doors opened almost simultaneously, and dark silhouettes stepped out. Men in suits, their movements efficient, their expressions unreadable. They weren't neighborhood cops, that much was certain. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She backed away from the window, her heart thudding so hard she thought it might give her away. A knock rattled the front door, not loud, not frantic, just a single, deliberate knock that echoed through the small house. "Miss Carter," a deep voice called out, calm, almost polite. "We need a word." Emily froze. She didn't answer. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. She typed Jake's name, her childhood friend, now a police officer, and hovered her thumb over the call button. But before she could press it, another voice spoke. "We know you have something that belongs to Mr. Kane." Emily's chest constricted. She had returned the wallet. She had given it back in his office. What else could they possibly mean? She had returned the wallet. She had given it back in his office. What else could they possibly mean? Her legs felt like stone, but she forced herself down the hallway toward her mother's room. She cracked the door open. Her mother was still asleep, peaceful and unaware of the storm outside. Emily shut the door quietly, whispering, "Please don't wake up." Another knock. Louder this time. Emily grabbed her phone and pressed call. Jake answered on a second ring, his voice groggy. It's late. What's wrong?" "They're here," she whispered, barely audible. "5 cars outside. They're saying I still have something." There was a pause, then Jake's voice sharpened. "Stay calm. Don't open the door. I'm on my way." She hung up, clutching the phone to her chest. Outside, the men hadn't left. One of them stepped closer to the window, his shadow stretching across her living room wall. He leaned slightly, as though he could sense her inside. "Emily," the first voice said again, this time firmer. "This is not a request. Where's the USB?" Her blood ran cold. USB? She had never seen one. She only returned the wallet. Had she missed something? Her mind raced back to last night, to the weight of the wallet in her hands. She remembered the cash, the cards, the business card, but no USB. Unless... The sound of a car screeching onto the street snapped her out of her spiral. Red and blue lights flashed against the walls of her living room. A patrol car skidded to a stop, and Jake jumped out, his uniform slightly wrinkled, his expression fierce. The men in black didn't flinch. They simply turned, silent, and one by one slipped back into their SUVs. Engines roared to life, and within seconds the convoy of cars peeled away into the night, vanishing as quickly as they had arrived. Emily stumbled to the door and yanked it open. Jake ran up the steps, his hand on his holstered weapon. "You okay?" he asked, scanning the street. Emily shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "They wanted a USB. I don't know what they're talking about." Jake's jaw tightened. He glanced at the empty street, then back at her. "Emily, if they think you know something, you're in more danger than you realize. Don't trust anyone." Emily's phone buzzed again. Another message lit up the screen. "Last chance, tomorrow or we come inside." The night dragged on like a nightmare that refused to end. Emily sat on the edge of her couch, her knees pulled tight to her chest, phone still clutched in her hand. Jake had insisted on staying until sunrise, pacing by the window with his hand near his holster. Every few minutes, Emily would glance outside, expecting the black SUVs to return. But the street stayed empty, eerily quiet except for the occasional bark of a dog 2 houses down. Her mother stirred in the bedroom once, coughing softly, but Emily didn't dare wake her. She couldn't bear the thought of her mom knowing the danger that had just rolled up to their doorstep. Jake finally broke the silence. "They said USB, right?" His voice was low, careful. Emily nodded. "But I don't have anything. I gave the wallet back, every single thing in it." Jake's eyes narrowed. "Then why are they convinced otherwise?" Emily shook her head, her voice trembling. "I don't know. I swear I don't." Jake sat across from her, leaning forward. "Listen, I don't know how deep this goes, but Victor Kane isn't the kind of man who misplaces things. If he sent his men to your house, then either he's testing you, or you're holding something you don't even realize." The thought made her stomach churn. She remembered the feel of the wallet again, its thick seams, the weight. Could there have been a hidden compartment, something small she missed? Before she could answer, a sharp sound echoed down the hallway. Emily's blood ran cold. It was her mother, coughing harder now, her voice hoarse as she called out, "Emily." Emily sprang up, rushing to the bedroom. Her mother was sitting upright, her skin pale and sweaty. "I can't breathe right," she whispered. Panic surged through Emily. She grabbed her mother's inhaler from the nightstand, guiding it to her lips. After a few desperate breaths, the color slowly returned to her face, but the episode left her trembling. Emily brushed damp hair from her mother's forehead. "It's okay, Mom, you're okay." Her mother's hand found hers, squeezing weakly. "What's wrong? You look terrified." Emily forced a shaky smile. "Just work stress, nothing you need to worry about." But she couldn't hide the truth from her eyes. Her mother studied her with the kind of sharpness only mothers had, but she was too weak to press further. Within minutes, she drifted back into a restless sleep. Emily stepped back into the living room, her chest tight. Jake was waiting, his expression grim. "She doesn't know, does she?" Emily shook her head. "And she can't. She's too sick to handle this. If she knew strange men were knocking on our door in the middle of the night," her voice cracked, "it would kill her with worry." Jake exhaled, rubbing his temples. "Then it's on us to figure this out before they come back." "What?" The weight of it pressed down on Emily like a vice. She wasn't a fighter. She wasn't rich or powerful or connected. She was a waitress barely scraping by. and yet somehow she had been shoved into the orbit of one of the most dangerous men in Dallas. Her phone buzzed again on the table. This time it wasn't another anonymous threat, it was a voicemail. With trembling fingers, she pressed play. Victor Kane's voice filled the room, smooth and deliberate. "Miss Carter, I admire honesty, but honesty without cooperation is useless. You have until tomorrow to return what belongs to me. If you do," a pause chilling in its silence, "things will get difficult for you and for your family." Emily dropped the phone as if it burned her. Her breath came in shallow bursts, the threat echoing in her head. Jake picked it up, his jaw clenched. "He's playing you. He wants to scare you into making a mistake." Emily whispered, "It's working." Jake leaned closer, his voice fierce but steady. "Then don't let him win. Whatever is going on, you're not alone in this." For the first time all night, Emily's tears finally spilled. Jake's presence was a small comfort, but the fear remained, a silent, knowing terror that tomorrow would bring something worse. Outside, across the street, the faint glow of a cigarette lit up the darkness. Someone was still out there, watching. The morning sun felt harsh, too bright for the shadows Emily carried inside her chest. She barely slept, her dreams plagued with the low rumble of black SUVs and Victor Kane's voice echoing in her ears. By the time she arrived at the diner for her shift, her body felt like it was running on fumes. She tied her apron tighter than usual, trying to appear normal as the regulars filed in for their morning coffee, but the weight of fear clung to her like grease on her skin. Her manager, a wiry man named Carl, barked at her from the kitchen. "Carter, you're late again." "Sorry," she muttered, ducking her head. She grabbed a coffee pot and made her way to a booth. She had just finished pouring when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She glanced at the screen and froze. Unknown number. Her heart hammered as she slid it open. Victor's voice filled her ears, smooth as oil. "Miss Carter, I gave you time. You didn't use it wisely." Emily's hand shook so badly she nearly spilled the coffee. "I told you," she whispered, her back turned to the diners. "I don't have anything else." I returned the wallet. On the other end, silence. "Then you're lying." "I'm not." The desperation in her voice cracked through the word. Victor chuckled, low and dark. "Do you think I don't know when something is missing? There was a device in that wallet, and until it's back in my possession, you and your family are very vulnerable." Her throat tightened. "I swear I don't." "Enough." His tone sharpened like a blade. "You will fix this, or your mother will suffer the consequences of your stubbornness. Consider this your final warning." The line went dead. Emily stood frozen, the phone pressed to her ear, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out the diner's chatter. She lowered the phone slowly, her entire body trembling. "Emily." She jumped. Carl stood there frowning. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I am fine," she stammered, "just not feeling well." Carl sighed, his tone sharp. "If you're going to drag your feet and scare the customers, don't bother coming back. We can't afford dead weight around here." Her stomach dropped. "You're firing me." He shrugged. "Let's call it an indefinite leave. Maybe permanent. Depends on whether I feel like dealing with this again." The words hit harder than she expected. The diner had been her anchor, her only steady paycheck. Now it was gone, ripped out from under her with one dismissive sentence. She untied her apron, her eyes stinging, and walked out. The Texas sun felt like an accusation as she stepped onto the sidewalk. Her phone buzzed again, a text this time. "You can't hide behind waitressing anymore. We're watching." Emily's stomach churned. She looked around wildly, scanning the street. Was the man in the gray sedan watching her? The woman at the bus stop with oversized sunglasses? Every stranger's face seemed to turn toward her. She broke into a jog, her breath shallow, desperate to reach her cog. But just as she pulled the door open, her phone rang again. This time she answered without thinking. "Please, just stop." But it was Victor's voice. It was Jake. "Emily, where are you?" he demanded. "The diner. I just got fired." "Get in your car and drive. Don't go home. Don't go anywhere predictable. They know where you work now. They'll know everywhere." Her knuckles whitened as she gripped the steering wheel. "Jake, what do they want from me? I don't have anything." "I don't know," Jake admitted. "But if Kane's involved, it's not about the wallet anymore. It's about leverage. And right now, you're it." Emily's throat tightened. "Then what do I do?" Stay alive until I can meet you, Jake said. His voice dropped. And Emily, don't trust anyone who comes offering help, not unless it.
Black SUV turned the corner 2 blocks away. Emily whispered, Jake, they've already found me. The roar of the black SUV in her rearview mirror grew louder. Emily's palms were slick against the steering wheel as she swerved onto a side street, praying her old Honda Civic had one more miracle left in it. Emily, Jake's voice crackled through the phone, urgent. Talk to me, where are you? They're right behind me, she gasped. I can't lose them, my car. Stay calm, I'll guide you, turn right on Elm. There's a parking garage 2 blocks down, lose them in there. Her tires screeched as she made the turn, the SUV following but slowed by traffic. She darted into the dim parking structure, heart pounding, and pulled into a narrow spot between 2 trucks. She shut off the engine and ducked low, her breaths ragged. The SUV rolled past the entrance, its tinted windows hiding the eyes she knew were searching. After a tense minute, the sound faded. Emily sagged against the seat, trembling. Jake's voice was steady. Good, you bought yourself time. Now listen to me, think. That wallet, are you absolutely sure you gave back everything? Her mind reeled. Yes, the cash, the cards, the business card, that's all I saw. Jake was silent, then said, Emily, men like Kane don't send black SUVs after someone unless they're protecting something worth more than money. He doesn't care about cash. He cares about control. You missed something. The words struck like lightning. Her hands fumbled for her bag, pulling out the wallet she thought she had returned. Her heart stopped. It was still there. She hadn't noticed in her panic yesterday. Kane must have had more than one, or maybe she'd grabbed a duplicate, but this one felt heavier, wrong somehow. She held her breath, running her fingers along the inside seam, and then she felt it, a ridge where there shouldn't be one. Emily tore at the stitching with shaking fingers until a tiny flap gave way. From inside, a micro USB card slid out, no bigger than her fingernail. She stared at it, realization slamming into her chest. This was it, the reason for the midnight SUVs. The reason Victor Kane's voice had crawled into her phone with threats. She was holding something he would kill to get back. Jake, she whispered, her voice trembling, I found it. What is it? A USB hidden in the wallet. Jake swore under his breath, then listened to me carefully. That thing could hold evidence, records, maybe even names. Don't plug it into anything. Don't show it to anyone. And for God's sake, don't hand it over to Kane. Emily's throat tightened. But if I don't, he'll come after my mom. He said so. Jake's voice softened. I'll protect you both, but if you give it back, he'll erase whatever's on it and erase you along with it. Do you understand? Tears blurred Emily's vision. She wanted to scream, to throw the USB out the window and pretend none of this had ever happened. But her gut told her Jake was right. This wasn't just about her. The USB burned cold in her hand, carrying secrets bigger than anything she'd ever known. She tucked it into her pocket just as headlights swept across the garage. Another car pulled in, slow, deliberate. Emily ducked, her heart hammering. She could make out the sleek silhouette of a black Mercedes. The driver's door opened and a woman in a tailored gray suit stepped out. Emily recognized her instantly, Sophie Lang, Kane's attorney, the woman with the predator's gaze in his office. Her heels clicked against the concrete as she scanned the garage, a faint smile playing on her lips. She carried a leather bag that seemed far too elegant for this place. Emily Carter, Sophie's voice rang out, smooth and commanding. We need to talk. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Emily pressed herself lower in the seat, clutching the USB so tightly it cut into her palm. Sophie stopped right in front of Emily's car, leaning down to peer through the windshield, her smile widening as their eyes met. Emily froze in the driver's seat, her breath shallow as Sophie's shadow stretched across the windshield. The attorney's smile was calm, too calm, like a predator playing with its prey. Come on, Emily, Sophie said, tapping her manicured nails lightly against the glass. You don't want this to get messy. Step out of the car. Let's talk. Emily clutched the USB in her fist until the sharp edges pressed into her skin. Every instinct screamed at her to drive, to slam her foot on the gas and escape. But the way Sophie stood there, poised, unflinching, made it clear she wasn't afraid of being run down, which meant she had backup close by. Her phone buzzed, Jake's voice burst through the speaker. Don't trust her, Em. She's Kane's mouthpiece. Get out of there now. Emily's pulse raced, but Sophie's voice slid through the crack of the slightly opened window, smooth as silk. Jake can't protect you. You saw what happened last night. Those men, they won't stop, and you'll drag your sick mother down with you. I, on the other hand, can make this all go away. Emily,
I believe you. Sophie crouched so her eyes aligned with Emily's they gleamed like polished glass. Because Kane doesn't know you found it, I can take that USB and handle this quietly. He doesn't need to know you were involved. You and your mother will be safe. Nobody else has to get hurt. The promise of safety wrapped around Emily like a lifeline. For one fragile second she imagined it. No more black SUVs outside her home. No more sleepless nights. No more threats against her mother. Just peace. Emily, listen to me, Jake urged through the phone, his tone sharp with urgency. That woman is lying. If you give her the USB, you disappear. You'll never see daylight again. Emily's throat tightened. She was trapped between two impossible choices. Trust Jake, the boy she'd known since childhood, or trust Sophie, who radiated confidence and power. One path felt like survivorhood. The other felt like a gamble she wasn't ready to take. Her hands trembled. Slowly she unlocked the door. Sophie's smile widened. Smart girl, Sophie murmured, extending her hand. Emily hesitated only a moment before placing the tiny USB into Sophie's palm. Relief and dread collided in her chest as Sophie straightened, tucking the device into her bag with practiced ease. See, that wasn't so hard. Sophie's voice was gentle, almost maternal. She reached out, brushing Emily's arm in what should have been a comforting gesture, but it sent a chill down Emily's spine. Sophie's phone buzzed. She answered, turning slightly away. Her tone changed instantly, sharper, colder. Yes, I have it. Tell Kane it's secure. Emily's stomach dropped, her relief shattered like glass. Sophie ended the call and looked back at her, the mask of kindness gone. You're free to go, Emily, for now. The words cut deeper than any threat, for now. Emily stumbled back into the car, her chest heaving. Her phone was still pressed against her ear. Jake's voice was ragged with fury. What did you do? I gave it to her, Emily whispered, tears welling. She promised. Damn it, Emily, Jake's shout exploded through the line. You just handed them the only leverage you had. Emily's vision blurred as Sophie's heels clicked across the garage, echoing like a death knell. She slipped into her Mercedes, the engine purring to life. As the car pulled away, Emily realized too late that she had traded her safety for a lie. Her phone buzzed again, a new message flashing across the screen. It wasn't from Jake. It was from Victor Kane himself. Thank you for your cooperation. I'll be in touch. Emily's hands shook violently. The walls of the parking garage seemed to close in, the weight of her mistake crushing her chest. She had tried to save herself, and in the process she might have doomed them all. Jake's voice cut through her spiral, low and urgent. Listen to me. This isn't over. Meet me tonight. Don't go home. Don't go anywhere alone. Do you understand? Emily wiped at her tears, her voice cracking. I don't know if I can fix this. You can, Jake said fierce, and you will, because if you don't, Kane wins, and you and your mom lose everything. A text notification blinked again on Emily's phone. This time it wasn't a threat, it was an address. Downtown, near the river, the message read, be there at midnight. Come alone or your mother pays the price. Emily gripped the steering wheel so tightly her fingers ached. The text on her phone burned into her mind, be there at midnight, come alone or your mother pays the price. Her pulse hammered, every instinct told her to drive straight to her mom, to hold her and never let go. But Jake's voice from earlier echoed in her head, don't go home, don't be predictable. The phone rang again. Jake, she answered, her voice shaking. They want me downtown at the river midnight. Of course they do, Jake snapped. It's a setup. They'll corner you, take what they want, and use your mom as leverage. You can't go. I don't have a choice, Emily's voice cracked. If I don't, they'll hurt her. Jake's tone softened. You won't survive if you play by their rules. Trust me, Emily, we run now or you're finished. Before she could argue, headlights flooded the garage entrance. Another black SUV rolled in, moving slow, deliberate, her breath caught. Jake cursed on the other end. I'm coming to you now. Keep the line open. Emily's hands trembled as she turned the key, her Civic sputtering to life with a metallic groan. The SUV picked up speed, barreling toward her. She slammed the gas pedal. The car jerked forward, tires squealing against the concrete floor. The SUV roared behind her, its engine smooth, powerful, built for the hunt. Emily shot out of the parking garage and onto the street, the city lights blurring past. Her old car rattled with every turn, but she pushed it harder than ever, weaving between traffic. Behind her, the SUV followed with terrifying precision, never more than a few car lengths away. Emily, listen to me, Jake said through the phone, his voice steady despite the chaos. You know the city better than they do. Use it. Cut through the back streets. Don't get... Emily took a sharp turn onto a narrow alley, trash bins clattering as her car scraped against a wall. Sparks flew. Her heart was in her throat, but for a moment she gained distance. Then another SUV appeared at the far end of the alley, blocking her path. She slammed the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. Panic surged as both SUVs closed in like jaws snapping shut. Jake, she cried. Out of the car, now. Emily threw the door open and bolted into the night, her sneakers pounding against the pavement. She heard engines rev, doors slam, and heavy footsteps chasing close behind. Her lungs burned, but she kept running, weaving through side streets, dodging pedestrians who cursed as she shoved past. Somewhere behind her, one of Kane's men shouted, "She's on foot, cut her off." Just when her legs felt ready to give out, a familiar voice pierced the chaos. "Emily, this way." She spun to see Jake at the wheel of his patrol car, lights off, parked half hidden in the shadows. He threw the passenger door open. Emily dove inside, slamming it shut as Jake floored the gas. The car shot forward, leaving the men shouting and scrambling behind. Emily collapsed against the seat, gasping for air, tears spilling freely. They were everywhere. They knew exactly where I was. Jake's jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the road. Because Sophie fed them your location. She played you, Emily. Kane's already 2 steps ahead. Emily wiped her face, her voice breaking. Then we're screwed. Jake shook his head. Not yet. As long as you're breathing, you've still got choices. But from now on, you can't hesitate. You hesitate, you die. The weight of his words crushed her. She had never felt smaller, more powerless, but inside that fear something hardened. She thought of her mother asleep on the couch, fragile and unaware of the danger circling them. She thought of the threats, the lies, the endless chase, and she realized she couldn't keep running forever. Jake glanced at her, his tone grim. We're going dark tonight. No phones, no credit cards, no home. If we want to beat Kane, we've got to outsmart him on his own turf. Emily nodded, her chest still heaving. Then tell me what to do. Before Jake could answer, the patrol car's dashboard lit up with a red warning. The engine sputtered violently, and in the rearview mirror, Emily saw 2 black SUVs closing in fast, like wolves scenting blood. The patrol car rattled down the empty road, its engine coughing like a dying animal. Jake cursed under his breath, slamming the dashboard. They've hacked the dam system. Kane must have tagged my unit. Emily's pulse thundered as the headlights of 2 black SUVs grew larger in the rearview mirror. Jake, they're gaining. He jerked the wheel, swerving into a narrow industrial street lined with warehouses. Car groaned in protest, then finally gave out, sputtering to a stop in the shadows. Out, Jake ordered, throwing his door open. Emily scrambled out, her legs shaky, her breath ragged. The night smelled of oil and rust. They darted between warehouses, the sound of SUV engines echoing closer. Jake pulled her into a side alley. Stay here. If they find me, run, don't look back. Are you insane? I'm not leaving you. But before either of them could argue further, a third vehicle rolled silently into view. Not an SUV this time, a sleek black sedan, its tinted windows lowered with eerie calm. Victor Kane sat inside. Emily's chest tightened as his cold eyes fixed on her from the backseat. He looked as composed as if he just stepped out of a boardroom, not orchestrated a citywide hunt. The rear door swung open. Miss Carter, Kane said smoothly, his voice carrying through the night air. Get in. Jake stepped in front of her, hand hovering near his holster. Not happening. Kane didn't even look at him. He gestured instead, and one of his men approached with a metal case. The latch clicked open, revealing stacks of $100 bills, neat and crisp, enough to make Emily's knees buckle. This, Kane continued, his tone calm, is $500,000. Yours, no questions asked. You take it, walk away, and this nightmare ends. Emily's stomach twisted. $500,000, more money than she could ever imagine. Enough to pay off every debt, to buy her mother the best care, to start a new life. She whispered, barely audible, why me? Why not just kill me and take it back? Kane's smile was cold. Because you intrigued me. You had the chance to steal. You didn't. That means you understand value. You understand restraint, qualities I respect. Jake's voice was sharp. Don't listen to him. He's manipulating you. Take that money and you'll never be free. Emily's hands trembled at her sides. She wanted to scream at both of them. She was just a waitress. She didn't ask for this war. She didn't want power plays or bribes. She wanted her mother safe. Kane leaned forward slightly, his gaze piercing. One choice, Miss Carter, security for your family or chaos. You decide. The weight of the decision pressed on her chest like iron. Her heart ached with the thought of her mother lying helpless in that small duplex, vulnerable to Kane's reach. For one terrible moment, Emily's body leaned toward the car, toward the case full of cash. Jake grabbed her arm. Emily, look at me. His eyes were fierce, desperate. That money is blood money. If you take it, you'll never sleep again. You'll be part of his cage. Her vision blurred with tears. She was being torn apart, caught between survival and morality, between temptation and loyalty. Then, without warning, a shot rang out. The sound exploded through the night, echoing off the metal walls of the warehouse district. Emily screamed, dropping to the ground, her ears ringing. Jake shoved her behind cover. Stay down, he barked, pulling his weapon. Chaos erupted. Kane's men fanned out, guns drawn, returning fire at an unseen attacker from the shadows. Bullets sparked against the concrete, shattering glass. Kane didn't flinch. He simply closed the case with a snap and retreated back into his car. Another time, Miss Carter, he said calmly, before the sedan sped off into the night, disappearing with the $500,000 temptation inside. Emily clutched Jake's sleeve, her body trembling. What just happened? Who's shooting at them? Jake's eyes scanned the rooftops, his jaw tight. Not us, someone else is in play. From the shadows of the warehouse, a figure stepped into the dim light, lowering a smoking rifle. Emily's breath hitched when she saw the face. It wasn't a stranger. It was the reporter who had once interviewed Kane on live TV, and he was looking straight at her. The smell of gunpowder still lingered in the air, sharp and metallic. Emily crouched behind a rusted dumpster, her pulse drumming in her ears. The figure in the shadows still closer, boots crunching against broken glass. It was him, the reporter. She remembered his face from television, sharp features, dark hair, piercing eyes that had once gone toe-to-toe with Victor Kane in a live interview. His name floated back to her, Ethan Cole. Jake kept his gun raised. Stay back. Ethan lowered his rifle slowly, hands open in a gesture of peace. Relax, officer, I'm not here for you. His gaze locked onto Emily. I'm here for her. Emily's stomach twisted. Why me? I don't even know you. Ethan's eyes burned with urgency. Because you're holding the one thing that can take Kane down for good. That USB is not just financial records, it's proof, contracts, bribes, names of politicians he owns. If it goes public, Kane falls, and he knows it. Her breath caught. She pressed a hand against her pocket, though it was empty. No, I don't have it anymore. Sophie took it. Ethan's face hardened. Then you've made this a hell of a lot harder. Sophie won't keep it. She handed it straight to Kane. And once he has it, the world loses its only chance at seeing what he's been hiding. Jake's voice was cold. You expect us to trust you. You're a reporter. You're in this for headlines. Ethan shot him a glare. I've been tracking Kane for 3 years. I've lost sources, friends, people who vanished because they got too close. I'm not here for a headline. I'm here for justice. Emily's throat tightened. Justice doesn't keep my mom safe, he threatened her. If I keep fighting him, she's the one who pays the price. Ethan crouched so he was eye level with her. His voice softened. And if you stop fighting, Kane wins. He keeps bribing judges, owning cops, silencing anyone who stands in his way. Your mom doesn't just stay in danger, everyone does. The words cut deep. Emily felt the crushing weight of choice pressing against her chest. On one side was her mother, fragile and innocent. On the other was the truth, ugly, dangerous, but necessary. Jake touched her shoulder, grounding her. Em, you don't owe the world your life. You just owe your mom safety. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered, but what if safety doesn't exist unless he stopped? Ethan's gaze didn't waver. Exactly. For a long, trembling moment, the three of them stood in the half-light of the alley, the city humming just beyond the walls of their nightmare. Emily finally exhaled, shaky but resolute. Fine. If I'm going to do this, we do it my way. I won't let him hurt her. Ethan nodded once, then we move fast. Sophie's probably already delivered the USB, but I've got sources inside Kane's circle. There might be a backup copy. Before Emily could process that sliver of hope, her phone buzzed again. She hesitated, then lifted it. Another message. Change of plans. We have your mother, midnight, Pier 17. Come alone. Her stomach dropped as the world tilted beneath her. Jake grabbed the phone, reading the message aloud, his face darkening. Damn it, he's not bluffing this time. What? Emily's chest ached. If they really have her, I have to go. No, Jake snapped. That's exactly what he wants. He'll use her as bait, and you'll walk straight into a trap. Ethan stepped forward, his jaw tight. But if she doesn't show, Kane kills the mother to send a message. That's how he works. Emily's breath hitched, the edges of her vision blurred, trapped again. Every road, every choice, death, betrayal, loss. Her hands shook as she whispered, then I'll go. I'll walk into the trap, but not empty-handed. Both men looked at her, startled. Emily's voice steadied. If Kane wants me, he's going to see exactly what I'm willing to risk, and I'm not just fighting for me anymore. Jake opened his mouth to argue, but before he could, the ground beneath them shook violently. The deafening crack of an explosion ripped through the air, fire lighting up the sky from somewhere only a block away. Emily's ears rang, her heart lurched. Ethan's face turned pale as he whispered, that wasn't random, he just destroyed the evidence. Kane knows we're coming. The blast still echoed in Emily's ears as smoke curled into the night sky. Flames licked at the roof of the warehouse a block away, painting the skyline orange. Sirens wailed in the distance, but Emily could barely move. Her legs buckled beneath her, and she collapsed against the cold brick wall. He knew, she whispered, tears spilling hot down her cheeks. He knew exactly where we were. Jake crouched beside her, gripping her shoulders. His eyes scanned the chaos. Emily, focus. We're still breathing. That means we're still in this. She shook her head violently. No, don't you get it? I gave Sophie the USB. Kane has it. He has my mom. He's burning everything that could expose him. It's over. I ruined everything. The words broke out in a sob. Emily buried her face in her hands, her body racked with guilt so heavy it felt like she was being crushed. Every mistake replayed in her mind, trusting Sophie, ignoring Jake's warnings, letting fear guide her. Ethan stepped closer, his voice sharp. You think Kane's invincible. He's not. That fire doesn't erase the truth. It just proves how scared he is, and scared men make mistakes. Emily looked up at him, her eyes swollen. Easy for you to say. You don't have a sick mother who could be dead right now because of me. The words silenced him. For the first time, Ethan's face softened, almost pained. You're wrong. I lost my sister because of Kane. She tried to blow the whistle on him, and he silenced her. That's why I've risked everything to follow this trail. You think I don't know what it feels like to lose family? His confession hit Emily like a punch. She stared at him, stunned into silence. Jake leaned closer, lowering his voice. Emily, listen to me. You've carried this guilt long enough. You can't keep blaming yourself for every move Kane makes. He's the one destroying lives, not you. But her chest heaved with the weight of it all. I can't do this. I'm not built for this fight. I'm just a waitress who got stuck in the wrong nightmare. Jake's hand tightened on her arm, his eyes, fierce and unwavering, locked on hers. No, you're not just anything. You're the only person who's managed to scare Victor Kane. Do you realize that? You've survived everything he's thrown at you so far. That's not weakness, Emily. That's strength. Her breath trembled. The words clashed with the voice in her head telling her she was already broken. But Jake's conviction was like a lifeline, pulling her out of the pit she was sinking into. For a moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the wail of sirens and the distant crackle of fire. Emily wiped her face with shaking hands, her sobs tapering into shallow breaths. Ethan crouched beside her now, his tone steady but urgent. You want to save your mother, then fight. Not blindly, strategically. We can still expose Kane, but we need each other, all of us. If you quit now, he wins, and your mother doesn't get saved, she just gets used. Emily looked between them, Jake with his unyielding loyalty and Ethan with his hardened conviction, both waiting for her to rise, to decide. Her chest tightened. For the first time since this nightmare began, she realized she still had a choice, not whether to run, but whether to fight. She drew in a shaky breath, straightened her back, and forced herself to stand. Her legs wobbled, but she stayed upright. Fine. If Kane wants me broken, he's not getting it. We'll get her back, and we'll burn him down. Jake's lips curved into the faintest smile. That's the Emily I know. But before the fragile spark of hope could grow, her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message. It was a video call. The screen lit up with a live feed. Her heart stopped. Her mother sat in a chair, wrists bound, tape across her mouth. A man's gloved hand held the camera steady. Victor Kane's voice slithered through the speaker. You've got one night to choose, Miss Carter. Show up at Pier 17 or you'll watch her die in real time. The call cut off, the screen went black. Emily's scream tore from her throat, raw and anguished. She fell to her knees, the spark of hope nearly snuffed out again. Ethan grabbed her phone, his face grim. He's daring us to walk into his trap, and if we don't, he'll keep his promise. The night air pressed promise. The night air pressed down heavy, thick with smoke from the burning warehouse. Emily stood frozen, her mother's terrified face still burned into her mind from the video call. Every breath came shallow, edged with panic. Jake placed a steady hand on her shoulder. We'll get her back, but Kane's expecting us to charge him blind. If we do that, it's suicide. Emily's throat tightened. Then what? Sit back while he kills her. No, Ethan cut in. We plan. We hit him where he doesn't expect it. We find leverage. Huh? His words sounded confident, but Emily caught the flicker of doubt in his eyes. Kane had stripped them of everything, the USB, the upper hand, and now her mother's safety. A sound echoed down the alley, footsteps slow and deliberate. All three spun toward it, Jake's gun array drawn. A figure emerged from the shadows, hands raised. The man was older, his suit wrinkled, his tie loosened, his expression worn with regret. Emily's stomach flipped. It was Daniel Cross, one of Kane's longtime financial advisors. She recognized him from a newspaper photo, always at Kane's side, silent, loyal. Jake barked, "Stay back." But Daniel didn't flinch. "If you want your mother alive," he said, voice hoarse, "you'll listen to me." Emily's heart pounded. "Lou, we trust you. You work for him." Daniel's face twisted bitter. "I worked for him, past tense. I've watched that man destroy lives for years. I thought loyalty kept me safe. But he burned one of my friends alive to send me a message last month." His voice cracked. "I can't do it anymore." Ethan stepped forward cautiously. "If you're serious, prove it." Daniel reached into his coat slowly, pulling out a flash drive sealed inside a protective case. "Kane thinks the USB Sophie delivered was the only copy. He's wrong. I made another. Everything you need to bury him is on this drive: financial trails, blackmail records, wire transfers to politicians." Emily's eyes widened. "Then why give it to us?" "Because Kane's already marked me for death," Daniel said flatly. "Helping you is the only chance I have left at redemption." Jake eyed him with suspicion. "Or it's the perfect setup to finish us off." Emily studied Daniel's face. His hands shook as he held out the flash drive, but there was something raw in his eyes, guilt, fear, and desperation all tangled together. She reached for it slowly, ignoring Jake's sharp intake of breath. The weight of the drive felt like a live grenade in her palm. Daniel leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Kane will kill your mother at Pier 17 unless you deliver yourself. But if you walk in with this, you hold power he can't ignore. He won't risk killing you while you carry his entire empire on a stick." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Or he kills her anyway and takes the drive from your corpse." Daniel didn't argue. "That's the risk, but it's better than no leverage at all." Emily clutched the drive to her chest, her pulse racing. The choice was unbearable. If she used it, she might draw Kane out, stall him long enough to save her mother, or she might be signing her own death warrant. Jake growled low, frustration bleeding through. "We can't just march in there. We need a plan, a diversion, backup, something." Daniel's lips pressed thin. "I know his men, their rotations, their weak spots. Let me help. I can guide you through." The tension thickened. Emily could feel Jake's mistrust radiating like heat. Ethan's eyes flicked between them, calculating, and Emily herself stood at the center, torn between fear and fragile hope. She met Daniel's gaze. "If you betray me, if this is some trick." Daniel's voice broke. "Then I'll deserve whatever Kane does to me. But if I'm telling the truth, you might be the only person alive who can bring him down." Silence fell heavy, broken only by the distant wail of sirens. Emily's hands trembled as she slipped the flash drive into her pocket. Jake exhaled sharply. "Emily." Her voice was steady for the first time that night. "We're out of time. If there's even a chance he's telling the truth, we use it." Daniel nodded grimly, but before another word could be spoken, headlights blazed at the end of the alley. A convoy of black SUVs rolled into view, engines rumbling like thunder. Kane's men had found them again. Engines growled like thunder as the convoy of black SUVs sealed off both ends of the alley. Their headlights cut through the smoke, bathing Emily, Jake, Ethan, and Daniel in a blinding white glare. Jake pulled his gun instantly, crouching low. "We're backed in." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we fight our way out." Emily's pulse hammered so loudly she thought it might burst through her chest. She wasn't a soldier, wasn't a cop. She was a waitress clutching a flash drive in her pocket, standing between two worlds that wanted to devour her. The first SUV door opened with a heavy thud. Kane's men spilled out, dressed in black suits, weapons glinting under the streetlights. Their steps were coordinated, silent, predatory. "Carter," one of them called out, voice echoing through the alley. "You come with us, and no one gets hurt." Jake barked a humorless laugh. "Yeah, right." Daniel stepped forward nervously, his hands raised. "Wait, let me talk to them. I can buy us time." What? Emily's stomach twisted. Could she trust him? Or was this his moment to betray them all? But before she could decide, the first shot cracked through the night. Sparks exploded against the metal dumpster beside her, and chaos erupted. "Down!" Jake shouted, pulling Emily into cover as bullets shredded the brick wall. Ethan dropped to one knee, his rifle barking fire back at the advancing men. The alley lit up in staccato flashes, each gunshot ripping the night apart. Emily covered her ears, her body trembling uncontrollably. But when she glanced at Jake, she saw the determination in his eyes, the man she'd known since childhood, fighting like hell to keep her alive. "Emily," Ethan yelled over the gunfire. "The drive, get it out of here. If they take it, it's over." Her throat tightened. Running meant leaving them to fight without her. Staying meant risking everything. For a heartbeat, she froze until Jake's hand gripped hers hard. "Go," he barked. "We'll cover you." Tears blurred her vision, but her legs moved anyway. She sprinted down the side of the alley, bullets pinging against the metal siding around her. Her lungs burned, every breath tearing at her chest. Behind her, the firefight raged. Ethan's rifle thundered, Jake's pistol cracked sharp, and Daniel's terrified shouts mixed with the chaos. Emily skidded around a corner, stumbling into a wider street. Her heart leapt with brief relief until another SUV screeched into view, blocking her path. The driver's door swung open, and this time it wasn't another faceless thug. It was Sophie Lang. Her tailored suit was pristine, her hair flawless despite the chaos. She stepped out calmly, as though bullets weren't flying only yards away, her eyes locked on Emily, cold and calculating. "Running won't save you," Sophie said smoothly, her voice carrying through the night. "Give me the drive, Emily. I'll make sure your mother is returned alive." Emily's chest heaved. "You already lied to me once." Sophie tilted her head, a faint smile curling her lips. "I lied to protect Kane. This time I'm offering to protect you. Don't confuse the two." The firefight behind them raged on, but Sophie's composure never cracked. She stepped closer, extending her hand. "One choice, Emily. Hand it over, or watch your world burn." Emily's palm pressed against her pocket, feeling the sharp outline of the flash drive. Every muscle in her body screamed with the weight of the decision. Her voice trembled. "If I give it to you, you'll kill me anyway." Sophie's smile widened. "Not if you play smart. Work with me, and we can both walk away from Kane with more power than you've ever dreamed of." Emily's stomach turned. Sophie wasn't just after the drive, she was after Kane's throne. For a split second, Emily considered it: power, safety, an end to the running. But then she thought of her mother, bound and terrified. She thought of Jake risking his life in the alley. She thought of Ethan's sister, silenced for daring to fight back. Her hand tightened around the drive. "No," Emily whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "I'm done being used." Sophie's expression hardened, the smile vanishing. She raised her hand, signaling the men climbing out of the SUV. "Then you've chosen death." The thugs surged forward, weapons raised, only to freeze as a blinding spotlight roared to life overhead. A helicopter thundered above the street, its loudspeaker booming. "Federal agents, drop your weapons." The helicopter's spotlight carved through the night, flooding the street with blinding white light. Engines roared as SUVs skidded to a halt, their drivers caught off guard. A booming voice thundered from above. "Federal agents, drop your weapons, hands in the air." For the first time since this nightmare began, Emily felt the shift. The hunters were suddenly the hunted. Sophie's face twisted, her perfect mask cracking. No, no, this wasn't supposed to happen. "What?" Jake and Ethan burst from the alley behind Emily, weapons raised but cautious as armed agents rappelled down from the helicopter, their rifles trained on Kane's men. One by one, black-suited thugs dropped their guns and fell to their knees. Sophie didn't move, her jaw tightened as she took a slow step backward toward her SUV. You don't understand, Emily, she hissed. If Kane falls, everything falls. The city runs on his power. Without him, chaos will swallow us whole. Emily shook her head, her chest heaving. Chaos is better than living in fear. Sophie's eyes narrowed, her voice dropping to a razor's edge. You think you've won? Kane doesn't go down this easy. He owns half the men in that helicopter. As if on cue, a sleek limousine appeared at the far end of the street, cutting through flashing lights. The door swung open, and Victor Kane himself stepped out, calm and composed, flanked by two bodyguards who ignored the federal rifles aimed squarely at them. The crowd of agents parted uneasily, unsure whether to move on a man whose reach extended into politics, courts, and law enforcement. Kane adjusted his cufflinks like he was arriving at a gala, not a battlefield. His icy eyes swept over the scene until they landed on Emily. "Miss Carter," he said smoothly, his voice carrying even without a microphone, "you've been a very troublesome girl." Emily's stomach clenched, but she forced herself to stand taller. "You're finished. Everyone here sees it now." Kane's smile was thin, almost pitying. "Do you really believe that? These men work for me. The judges work for me. The politicians work for me. All this noise," he gestured to the helicopters, the agents, the chaos, "means nothing without power, and power, Miss Carter, is mine." Sophie stepped forward suddenly, her voice sharp. "No, it's mine." The crowd hushed. Kane turned his head slowly, his expression hardening as Sophie's betrayal rang through the night. She pulled the flash drive from her bag, holding it high. "I'm done being your pawn. With this, I control everything you've built, and I'm not afraid to use it." Gasps rippled through the ages. Cameras from nearby reporters swung to capture the scene. Kane's voice dropped, dangerous and low. "Careful, Sophie. That kind of ambition gets people killed." Emily's chest tightened as she realized what Sophie was doing. She wasn't exposing Kane to save anyone. She was seizing the throne for herself. "Agents," Sophie called out, her tone commanding. "Arrest him. I'll testify. With this drive, I can prove everything." The lead agent hesitated, his finger twitching on the trigger. The silence stretched until Ethan stepped forward, shouting above the noise. "She's lying. That drive isn't the only copy. I've seen the data. It's enough to bury both of them." All eyes turned to Emily. She reached into her pocket, her hand trembling, and pulled out Daniel's backup drive, the one Sophie didn't know existed. "This one," Emily said, her voice steady, "is the real evidence, and it's going public tonight." The agents moved in an instant. Kane's bodyguards were wrestled to the ground, their guns stripped away. Kane himself was shoved against the hood of his limousine, his hands forced behind his back as cameras flashed wildly. For the first time, Victor Kane looked small, his arrogance stripped away by cold steel handcuffs. Sophie screamed, lunging toward Emily. "You think this makes you a hero? You don't know what you've unleashed." Emily stepped back, her eyes burning with fury and grief. "You chose his side, Sophie, and now you'll fall with him." Two agents grabbed Sophie, pulling her back as she kicked and cursed. The flash drive slipped from her grasp, clattering to the ground. Emily's knees nearly buckled from exhaustion as she watched Kane and Sophie dragged toward waiting vehicles. For the first time in weeks, she felt a breath of relief escape her chest. It was over. It had to be. But just as she turned to Jake and Ethan, her phone buzzed again. A new message lit up the screen, unknown number, the same format as before. "You think Kane was the end, Pier 17. 1 hour or your mother dies." Emily's heart stopped. Kane was in cuffs. Sophie was screaming in chains, but the threat was still alive. Someone else was pulling strings. The docks at Pier 17 groaned under the weight of time and tide, planks creaking as Emily stepped onto them. The night air smelled of salt and diesel, the water below churning in the pale light of the moon. She clutched the backup drive in one hand, her phone in the other, every nerve in her body screaming that this could be her final walk. Jake and Ethan had wanted to come with her, but the message had been clear: come alone. If she broke that rule, her mother's life was forfeit, so now she walked alone, fear a knot in her chest. At the far end of the pier, a lone figure stood with her mother bound to a chair. Emily's breath hitched at the sight. Her mother's frail body slumped, tape across her mouth, eyes wide with terror. The figure stepped forward into the moonlight, not Kane, not Sophie. The Senator Charles Whitford, the same politician whose name Emily had glimpsed on the hidden files. He smiled like a man untouchable. "Miss Carter, brave of you to come. Kane was a useful tool, but he was never more than a front. The real machine runs deeper, and now you've wandered into gears you don't understand." Emily's voice trembled. Let her go. Whitford's gaze flicked to the flash drive in her hand. After you hand that over. Her mother whimpered through the tape. Emily's heart cracked, but she forced her hands to steady. She raised the drive just high enough for him to see. You'll kill us anyway. That's what men like you do. Whitford chuckled. I don't kill, I orchestrate, and I never waste talent. You've shown courage. Waste talent. You've shown courage most don't have. Join me, and your mother walks free. The offer hung in the salty air, poisonous and tempting. For a second, Emily saw the possibility. Safety, power, no more running. But then she thought of the trail of bodies Kane had left, of Sophie's betrayal, of the people's silence because no one dared fight back. Her jaw tightened. I'd rather die standing than live kneeling to you. Whitford's smile thinned. So be it. He raised a hand, signaling the armed men hidden in the shadows. Before they could move, headlights flared at the edge of the dock. Jake's patrol car screeched to a halt, Ethan leaning out the window with his rifle already raised. Federal agents are right behind us, he shouted. Game over, Senator. Chaos exploded. Gunfire lit up the pier, bullets sparking off metal shipping containers. Emily dropped to the ground, crawling toward her mother as the firefight raged around her. She reached the chair, fumbling with the ropes until her fingers bled. Mom, I've got you, I've got you. She ripped the tape away, her mother gasping for air. Tears streaked Emily's face as she pulled her mother into her arms. Emily, her mother whispered weakly, go save yourself. Not without you, Emily sobbed, dragging her toward cover. Behind them, Jake fired round after round, keeping the senator's men at bay. Ethan shouted coordinates into a radio, calling in the cavalry. Whitford himself slipped toward the shadows, fury etched across his face as his empire began to crack. Emily held her mother tight as red and blue lights finally swept across the dock. Dozens of federal agents stormed in, overwhelming the senator's men in minutes. The gunfire ceased, leaving only the crash of waves against the pier. Agents swarmed Whitford, forcing him to his knees. Cameras from news crews caught every second as handcuffs snapped shut around his wrists. The image of power was shattered, broadcast live across the nation. Emily collapsed beside her mother, shaking with relief. Jake dropped to his knees next to them, breathless but alive. Ethan stood nearby, watching as the senator was dragged away, his expression heavy with both victory and exhaustion. For the first time, Emily allowed herself to believe it was over. Days later, she stood in front of the diner again, not as a waitress this time, but as a survivor. Locals greeted her with nods, handshakes, and quiet words of gratitude. She had become a symbol without meaning to prove that even the smallest voice could shake the walls of power. Inside, her mother sipped coffee, color returning to her cheeks. Jake leaned against the counter, a faint smile tugging his lips. Told you we'd make it, he said softly. Emily's eyes stung as she whispered back, we didn't just make it, we changed it. What? The flash drive, now in federal hands, was already unraveling networks of corruption across the state. Headlines screamed with arrests, resignations, and the collapse of empires built on fear. But Emily knew this wasn't the end. The machine Whitford spoke of ran deeper, darker, and more dangerous than even Kane. For now, though, she allowed herself a rare gift, peace. She reached across the counter, took her mother's hand, and breathed for the first time without the weight of dread in her lungs. Her life had been forever altered, but she was still standing, stronger, wiser, unbroken. Outside the diner, a black envelope slid under the door. Emily picked it up, her heart skipping as she read the single line scrawled inside. The machine is watching.